advocate community providers.
Wait, Ben, here's yeah. It's Dad, I'm sorry.
Okay. Would the IA begin, please? Who is the IA rep on this?
I am Ann. Hi, how are you?
Good. Could you start?
Yes, sure. The ACP PPS network consists of approximately 1,200 primary care physicians caring for over 637.
Excuse me, Jessa. Could you keep the sound down? We're starting. Thank you. Go ahead.
Caring for over 637,000 Medicaid recipients residing in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens. The PPS has committed to 9 projects. A core component of the IA assessment focused on the overall PPS organizational capacity to support the successful implementation of DSRIP and meet the DSRIP goals. ACP's governance structure has evolved since year 1 of DSRIP. ACP is comprised of 3 voting members under its delegated partnership model: AW Medical Office, New York Community Preferred Providers, and Northwell. Representation of entities has evolved in that Northwell, who previously had 25% interest, has since been increased to 50% in March 2016 and is serving as the PPS's fiduciary. In addition to the evolution of its governance structure, ACP is continuing its contracting efforts, specifically in the areas of CBOs. In DY1Q3, ACP submitted a list of CBOs it intends to contract with as a part of its quarterly report. At that time, 20% of that list had executed contracts, while the rest had MOUs, indicating that the PPS intended to eventually contract with the remaining CBOs. Since DY1Q3, ACP may have continued its contracting efforts with CBOs. However, the IA does not know the current status of the remaining CBOs in the list, as the PPS intends to complete this milestone at a future date. In addition to CBO contracting, ACP's organizational efforts also includes cultural competency and health literacy. ACP's approach to CCHL was informed by their community needs assessment, and they currently have a CCHL committee that meets quarterly. Comprised of key stakeholders, the committee is tasked with both implementing programs and initiatives to ensure that ACP's network is culturally competent and raising the health literacy level of its patients. As such, the PPS develops CCHL trainings for both partners and patients. Partners are trained on improving communication and educating the patient, while patient training targets health issues specific to its patient population. Equally important are ACP's efforts surrounding financial sustainability and VBP. ACP created a financial sustainability strategy which served to define and lay out its approach to identify and assist financially fragile partners and submitted it to the IA with its DY1Q4 quarterly report. The PPS conducted a baseline survey of its partners in DY1 and did not identify any fragile partners. Further, ACP submitted its value-based purchasing transition roadmap with its DY1Q4 quarterly report, where the PPS committed to VBP by acknowledging a commitment to engage in risk arrangements. Finally, ACP's organizational assessment concluded with a review of its first-level funds flow. Through DY2Q2, ACP's funds flow reporting indicates they have distributed 35.63% of the district funds it has earned. 89% of those funds were directed to 3 partner categories: PCPs, PPS PMO, and hospital partners, with none flowing to CBOs. In addition to the assessment of the overall organizational capacity of the PPS, ACP was assessed on its progress towards implementing the DSRIP projects selected. Projects were assessed based on the key data elements discussed earlier, inclusive of the PPS's progress towards completing the project milestones, PPS efforts in meeting patient and partner engagement targets. Based on these elements, the IA identified potential risks and data elements that support those risks are in the notes section. This will ultimately result in the development of recommendations for each project. During the midpoint assessment review, it was discovered that when ACP surveyed its partners, few partners requested DSRIP funds to aid with potential hardship. Although the PPS concluded that these partners were not truly fragile, it was noted that the survey asked open-ended questions that were subject to interpretation, and as a result, solicited requests for DSRIP funds. These partners were responding to the survey questions that asked whether they wanted financial assistance, what amount was needed, and what was their time frame, instead of gathering hard financial data. Therefore, it was recommended that the PPS educate its partners on the role of the PPS in terms of assisting them financially and tailor their financial stability survey of their partners to gather hard data in order to assess the financial state of its partnering organizations. For Project 2B3, the PPS indicated in its narrative that there were challenges surrounding patient engagement in that it serves a population that requires significant community outreach and education regarding ED use and alternative sites of care in order to successfully engage these patients. In addition, there are challenges and concerns around the capacity of PCPs that are inhibiting the PPS partner engagement commitments. Specifically, PCP offices are usually booked to capacity with very little availability for new walk-in appointments or walk-ins. Lastly, the PPS acknowledged that technological difficulty it has incurred in connecting hospitals and PCPs to guarantee timely scheduling of PCP appointments by patient navigators at the ED. The technological connection between hospitals and PCPs is integral in ensuring the project and programmatic goals are successfully implemented. That concludes the IA's overview.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the PPS, and if you would introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm obviously not Dr. Ramon Talaj, who has been the face of ACP before. My name is Alex Dameron. I'm one of the senior members of ACP since day one. And I'm honored to be in front of you today with my colleagues here to talk about the progress creating the new holistic model of healthcare. And this is something that has been provided to us thanks to the DSRIP program. Transformation is an excellent word for such a challenging and complex process. And we ourselves have been transformed by DSRIP. Over the past 2 years, as a truly community-based network of healthcare professionals working at the front line of these issues every day. Before we start, I would like to show a little presentation that we produce as part of our reach that I feel embodies the spirit of change.
I am a community health worker by passion. My hope, and it's my passion too, is to have better health outcome in my community.
Working with ACP has made a big difference in our community. Because we're private practice physicians, a lot of the physicians don't have access to the kinds of resources that ACP has been able to provide.
I can't do it myself. I can see the patient, I can talk to the patient, I can advise the patient, I can give medication to the patient and follow up the patient, but I need something extra. I need an institution that can support me.
For the mother that I didn't pick up the medicine, it was something that it was normal for them. She didn't see the importance to pick up the medicine. And after we talked to her, she realized that it's so important for the well-being of the child to pick up the medicine on a regular basis.
What Health People is doing with ACP is especially important in low-income communities. It's teaching good diabetes self-care and training, especially their community health workers, to provide the Stanford Diabetes Self-Management Program.
By doing these diabetes self-management workshops, that they have absolutely changed, completely changed how people eat, how they think, how they take care of themselves, how they share information with others that weren't there.
PCMH is so important because it allows practices to analyze and improve every facet of their patient care.
I'm very confident and very hopeful I think the technology and the partnership will really bring the highest quality care, I think, to the patients in our community.
Being in control of my asthma is much better. I don't have as many exacerbations like with weather changes or just the little things that trigger the asthma.
Value-based payments is forcing the collaboration, which did not really exist before, forcing the collaboration of primary care physicians, hospitals, community-based organizations to come together.
And when we come for meetings, all the community providers would talk about our best practices.
Transformation's never easy, but the providers are very grateful that they have access to these resources.
We are actually very happy that we became partners with ACP. We felt that we have the same philosophy and we have the same goals to help our community.
ACP has been one of the most willing, most collaborative partners.
It's needed because these things have made my life easier, and if it's made my life easier, I'm sure it's done the same for other patients.
It's a hard work, but this is the satisfaction that I get every day. Do a good work for the community.
In order to keep achieving district goals, we have added many thought leaders to our senior management with vast experience in the healthcare field. So let me just pass the microphone now to our COO, Mary Ellen Connington.
So good afternoon. I'm very proud and pleased. Good afternoon. I'm very proud and pleased to be here. I've been with ACP for 9 months. The words on the screen are very powerful words, first spoken to ACP 2 years ago by the PAOP group. It's words that we took to heart. You warned us that our greatest strength was also our greatest challenge. So these are words that we have never stopped thinking about, and we see it actually as our greatest challenge, and it's become a guiding principle for us. When we look at transformation, we feel there are 4 critical steps that we've concentrated on. The first is because we are different, our primary care plan is the blueprint that manages care in the community at the level of the PCP. The second is technology. We are managing population health data across a community. We don't walk into an established outpatient department and wire up all the computers. We have 14 different EMRs spread across 4 boroughs. So looking at creating that pipeline for technology to manage care is critical. Of course, expertise in cultural competency and health literacy. And VBP, we see as our vision for the sustainable future. The slide in front of you, we're very pleased to note, comes from the DOH. And ACP was recognized for excellence for its primary care plan. The primary care plan, we believe we've got it right, but it takes a lot of effort. You heard in the video that ACP has now supported over 400 practices to either achieve or in the pipeline for NCQA PCMH Level 3 status. This is critical to population health and solving a lot of the issues that we're trying to. We've spent over $2 million to support that effort. It also takes a robust network of CBO partners to make this happen. Value-based payment. Our vision is clear that VBP is the sustainable future. We believe that VBP aligns payment with quality and not quantity. And we're grateful that our efforts in VBP have been recognized. But this is not easy. We have had to be disruptors in this area. In VBP, we advocate for fundamental change, such as overcoming skeptical thinking that question if a consortium of community-based providers and community-based organizations could even manage risk. We believe we can. This forced disruptive thinking within ACP itself, such as combining our founding IPAs into a super IPA that could contract for services, risk-based contracts, and we've named it SOMOS, we are. We know that with clinical integration and our community partners, we believe we are creating the new paradigm for healthcare, for the future of healthcare. And success is on the screen in front of you. We have 6 LOIs with community-based managed care organizations that are working with us for the pilot program. Next big challenge is state-of-the-future technology. The good news is we're not encumbered by any legacy systems in IT. The bad news is we had to create our own from scratch. So the two gentlemen over there, our CIO and CTO, are world-class experts in technology, and led by them, we've built a unique system that what I feel can wire the community. The system is a system of the future. It's cloud-based, flexible, expandable, lowers the cost, increases the speed, connects us to expert systems that community providers never had access to, and finally connects the community. Essentially brings the community online, connects practices with CBOs in order to have the next gen healthcare. And by the way, we pass the rigorous New York State security standards. I'd like to now introduce my colleague, Moises Perez Martinez, who will talk to you about our cultural competence in health literacy. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I'm a storyteller, but today I want to go right to the facts. Let me speak first on CBO selection. Access to patients has never been a really major issue for us. Our patients are largely from immigrant communities, and the CAP survey pointed to a very strong patient loyalty to our doctors. Our major concerns have been twofold. One, addressing social determinants, and two, the high number of chronically ill individuals in our community and finding opportunities for self-care. These factors have, in fact, driven our selection of CBOs. We submitted with the CBO survey a total of 63 community-based organizations, Tier 1, that we intend to incorporate into our network. Out of the 63, 34 are single-stop organizations, multi-service operations that are able to address a wide range of issues across the spectrum of service delivery. 12 received funds in D2Q4 and therefore did not register in the survey. 7 CBOs were funded through contractual agreements in D2Q2, that's when the contractual agreements were executed, and also did not register in the survey. 4 organizations are Medicaid providers in the list of 63, and we kept them in because of the rich array of other services that they provide. 3 support chronic illness self-care, and that would be Health People, IPRO, and QTAC. Tier 1 spending for D2Q2 is actually $338,349, and an additional D2Q4 spend of $330,833. When you combine that with an additional $300,000 for Medicaid billing CBOs, that total comes out to nearly $1 million.
3 minutes left.
On community health workers, which is a major initiative with ACP, we've hired 50 of them. We embedded them in CBOs, and they do all sorts of activities around patient engagement and engaging the community. On workforce, our major focus of the PPS has been engaging patients, which is the daily, the physicians, which is the daily activity, PCMH, CCHL training, training community health workers, and then Stanford model implementation. Allow me to introduce my partner, Angela.
Hi, thank you, Moises. One of the challenges when working with the Chinese community, we find out that is the cultural belief towards healthcare. Many Chinese believe that when they don't talk about illnesses or, like a death, because it's a bad luck. So many of them, they don't believe in preventive care. And they also think that if you are not sick, why you go to see a doctor? And on the contrary, and when they are very, very sick, they only go to see the doctor when they are very, very sick. And besides, blood is they consider as, non-revitalized energy. So that is why sometimes they don't want to get those blood work to test for cholesterol or glucose. But with DISRIP and also ACP's involvement, and also our community health workers bilingual, and they go to the doctor's office, and what they do is to help, to educate our patients and then to realize that how important it is with the healthcare. So what we find out is we change their behavior. Some of the patients, they learn how to read labels, and also they change their approach on diet and nutrition. Instead of taking more sodium, like oyster sauce, soy sauce, or hoisin sauce, and they reduce it, and then they eat more vegetable. So what we do is we are going to help our community to get appointments, and then for them to learn new practices, and then to reduce hospitalization, and also to learn to improve the health literacy. Now I want to introduce Dr. Poneman, and then to take the last minute.
You've got about a minute, doctor, so.
Okay. Yeah, just a few reflections from the field. Same way our patients have thoughts and beliefs, we found that our community physicians have thoughts and beliefs as well. By the way, these are independent practitioners. None of them work for ACP. One of the beliefs is that it's very difficult to practice medicine beyond the office walls and beyond the hospital walls or settings. Most of them have been practicing without the concept of population health, and let me tell you, it's been spoken a lot about CBOs. Most of them have never interacted with CBOs. But we are bringing them into the discussion. We are bringing them to our quality clinical committees. They're part of ACPs. We partner with them. We're moving into PCMH, some of them in the process of. We started to work with our partner Hospital Jamaica in the MAC series, tackling these 4 or more admissions in a year to the hospital. And that reminds me when I used to work in a community hospital in another state, we are bringing now another excuse to bring our community providers to the table to talk to the hospital, to talk to the CBOs, to identify those local CBOs, to work with care manager, etc. Another belief, and I'm closing with this, that these PCPs practitioners have is that mental health is not for the PCP office. And let me tell you, guess who is treating depression? We, PCPs, are treating depression. So we are training the staff. We are helping with a warm handoff. And now we are partnering with Thrive New York City, because we're going to work with Mental Health Service Corps, and we're going to incorporate them into our practice. Believe it or not, after a couple of years of disrupt, now our practices are welcoming this clinical social workers that 2 years ago, this was, unacceptable to them. This were their
Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. All right, thank you. We'll turn it over to the PAOP for questions and comments, but first, congratulations. Okay, Marilyn, and then John, and then Sherry.
Just wanted to know how you got the docs to the table.
I'll take that answer. I mean, ACP is founded by one of the 3 largest IPAs in New York City. So they have been building the relationship for more than 15 years, and they have been taking risk contracts and trying to perform value-based payment and capitation since 2000, year 2000. So it's a long way.
It takes a lot of time to convince them. Now, but it's nice to see the evolution. Now, for example, it's amazing how our community health workers, we have 50 about them from ACP, now they're allowed in the medical practice. They're working with the patient. They're sitting in the waiting rooms. They're trying or helping the patient navigate the system. They're filling forms for them. Before, I remember when the ACP says, no, we don't have time, we don't have space, so please get out of here. So slowly, they're getting to the practices, and now it seems like same as the clinical social worker, they would say, who's liable? They're very concerned about liability, about all this. Now they want them. I have already signed 30 practices that they want to work with, the Department of Health, with his health corps or mental health corps, and they're willing to get started. It seems like, it happened. I don't know how, but slowly it happened.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to, could be any one of you, thanks for your great work and presentation. So I was at a site visit there, and the topic that is underscored by the third recommendation from the IA, I think was evident during the site visit, and it certainly remains prominent. And that has to do, and I think you alluded to this in your remarks, it has to do with the financial sustainability of your member practitioners. I mean, in a sense, the way I look at this is that you're trying to take a gigantic number of independent practitioners, and in a sense, you're trying to create a group practice of a phenomenal scale. And obviously, that's going to take time and so on. I'm curious about what is your messaging, and then what is the substance that will drive people to, I think, take the risk and feel confident that the program is going to work. Because when I was there, this was a big topic that people were bringing up, and it seemed like this was taking a tremendous amount of energy of the organization to try to figure out, understandably. However, the recommendation cites that, but just as a matter, I think, of the scale here, I'd be interested in what is the message that you think is resonating with your partners to take the risk.
I mean, I'll let Mary Ellen go into details, but just to highlight, we are not trying to group them together. These are all independent physicians competing out there in the community, small practices that you see the advantage of right now collaborating and working together under district, and that for the first time there is funds allocated for us to prepare them the right way so they can provide better service to their care. But Mary Ellen?
I'll add to that. I think the current method of paying for and managing healthcare is unsustainable for the community-based provider. They're looking this as a method of survival. I have been in hospital administration, managed care administration. When I came to ACP, my eyes were opened. I heard physicians talk about being the pastor, the jobs counselor, the immigration worker. They do so much in these practices. They have the trust of the community, and yet payment is not aligned to sustain them. They are running to this. They are interested. This is a way to preserve them and what they do in the communities. So they're looking for the how. They are grateful to district for the funds to begin to experiment and do this, and they are energized. They're excited about it.
Sherry?
Well, I know we were all very excited in the beginning because you are so different. And it is a bunch of doctors who are individuals. But I'm a little disappointed to hear you speak in a tense that suggests you're getting ready to. You intend to. We're going to. I've read the recommendations of the independent assessor, and based upon what the two people who actually did the site visits, it sounds to me like you need to probably take those recommendations seriously, because when I look at the numbers, and there's enthusiasm and it's all wonderful, and we of course want you to succeed, but you've also got to do the paperwork and you've got to meet the responsibilities. Even though it may be harder for you, you had to have known that when you started out. And I hope you can and will succeed.
Just want to
Thank you, Sherry.
Clarify one thing before we go. I mean, it might be a confusion, but in our site visit, we had Judy and Steven. I don't recall having
That's
you
fine.
present there. I just want
It's
to
fine.
make sure.
Thank you for clarifying. Judy, you're next.
Thank you. Yeah, this is what cultural competence looks like. Thank you. But I have two questions. One is Northwell has 50% of you guys, and it's not a safety net provider. So I'd like to know how much money they are taking out of ACP as one question. And the other question is whether the $1 million that you were stripped of for some God knows what reason, on cultural competence has been returned to your PPS?
So I let Moises answer the cultural competency questions, but in regards to Norwell, our fiduciary partner, they're not a safety net provider.
I know that,
So
yes.
the funds that we allocated for hospital goes majority to the Medicis health system, Jamaica, and Flushing, which are Medicaid, and they are a safety net provider. Norwell serves the majority as the fiduciary, where they do get paid to provide some fiduciary work for ACP.
And how much is that payment?
It's a million something a year.
So that's a lot of money
Correct, but
to a non-safety net provider.
correct.
Okay. And then the second about the $1 million.
No. We didn't get
Thank
it
you.
back. It was a costly technicality.
So has the appeal gone?
The appeal.
CMS, right?
We filed the appeal with CMS.
Uh-huh.
We spoke with CMS. CMS sent back a letter without comment saying that they uphold the original decision.
Okay, Stefan?
Thanks again for your presentation. It was heartening to hear about the progress you guys have been making on the mental health side, working in figuring out how to do screenings, referral to treatment, working with the mental health core, and so forth. Wondering, and I know that you've have, from what I understand from the report, done some innovative things around health literacy, cultural competency. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more to the substance use disorder side of the population and how that can be addressed through this network. And this is something I bring up because you're not the only one. Most of the PPSs, we have one performance measure in SUD, which is the initiation, engagement, and treatment. Like most PPSs, you didn't quite make that mark as of at least April 2016. In fact, I think only about 3 PPSs did. So we're underperforming in this one metric that we have for SUD. But I wanted to see what you had what were your plans were for addressing that.
So the clinical social workers are working on depression, of course, PHQ-2/9s, but also on SBIRT. So that's something. And the other thing people tell me I'm crazy, but I started conversations with me and a group of physicians. We've done the buprenorphine training with Dr. Chinaso Cunningham from Montefiore, and she now in February, first week of February, she's going to come. And again, a lot of, when you talk to physicians in the community, that is him and the wife answering the phone. That's as many of our physicians, or has one MA that draws the blood, to tell them to include, again, substance abuse or Suboxone. It's kind of difficult. But what I see from the community and from other stakeholders is that they're interested to see how to make it happen, not in an Article 28, not in a big clinic, but so we are a lab, I think. I don't know. I mean, if I tell them to start, again, buprenorphine, BUP training, most of the physicians, I know they're going to say no. But again, this is a process. They agreed to screening for depression. They agreed to now SBIRT, alcohol, and now the conversation started for. But I think we have to go I know I've heard from before we are, district is going, but I think we're here to stay, and we have to go slowly. But I think that this is something that we've discussed. Yep.
I just want to add to that. So we've got the depression screening down really well. We're moving in with the SBIRT for the substance abuse screening, working with New York City Department of Health and Mental Health to look at it too. So from the community-based physician's perspective, in order to prescribe the kind of drugs we're talking about, each of our physicians has to go for an 8-hour training. They have to apply to have their DEA license amended so that they can prescribe these drugs. So you can imagine, they're not employed, we just can't give them the day off. When they're out of the office, they're not seeing patients. So managing this in a community-based setting takes a level of expertise. So what we're building on is the success with depression screening. and now moving it into the substance abuse arena. And it seems to be going smoother, more accepted. We can build one on top of the other. But it is a challenge, and it's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question about IT. How much did you spend on developing this new system?
We are contracting right now, and this is a $6 million a year contract for the next 3 years, so it will be $18 million based on the services that we are committing to.
And the decision to build it yourself is a huge financial and commitment. Did you look at other systems that might have met your needs without developing your own?
This is an excellent question. In fact, as an IT person, you always come up with this: do I want to build it? Do I want to buy it? Do I want to even outsource it?
Right.
And in fact, this is a threefold question that we're answering every day. Most of our solution is outsourced and bought from the outside, meaning the experts in the industry are using the same system. I'll give you an example. For example, the district reporting platform is used by 13 other PPSs. So we're tapping into references. We went to Bronx, Lebanon. We watched the system used on their side. We actually learned based on their experiences without even have to spend money on it, and we're implementing the same system and taking the precautions that they're giving to us.
Okay, another, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in the deck, open source means free. So up till now, we've built as much of this with free software as possible, and we've spent about maybe $60,000 so far on software. It's some of the additional population health analytics, the HEDIS measure calculation, the 3M CRG calculation. That's all commercial software that we have to buy. That's the stuff that Tanguch mentioned that's upcoming.
And you think that's about 18 million?
Over the rest of the project, yeah. And there's no way around that. That's commercial software. There's no competitors. There's, you know.
So the recommendation says without an IT system, you have a hard time connecting the hospital and the primary care office. When will this be ready? It doesn't sound like it's going to be ready until almost the end of district. Am I misunderstanding that?
No, it's correct. It is difficult, and I think the recommendation specifically called out scheduling integration, which is especially challenging because there is no standard for integrating schedules amongst EMRs. Clinical records can be exchanged with the CCD, which is a standard that various EMR vendors agree on, but there's no standard for setting a schedule, for instance. So to the IA specific recommendation, our approach is to target the 80% of our providers that go on our two main EMR platforms, get them to talk to each other, and that's part of the spend that Tanguch mentioned.
And when will that be ready?
We're starting on that project next quarter. We anticipate it'll take about 1 quarter to finish.
So by the middle of the year?
I think so, yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to achieve those ER goals without this connection, and I'm concerned that time is a ticking here.
Yeah, so are we.
Okay.
So in the interim, we've been kind of plugging holes with manual work, checklists, phone calls, that kind of thing.
All right. Yes, but Steve was next, and then Sherry.
I was on the visit, and I just to start by saying I was very impressed with the energy and the efforts of the people I met, a bunch of whom are here. I was also one of the people who was very concerned about this. You may remember when we approved this, and that concern has been lessened considerably. But I think the concern was real and should remain in front of us as it is in front of them at this point. Unlike Judy, who was worried about the $1 million to Northwell, as if it's a toxic, non-polluting something or other. I'm actually very pleased that Northwell has taken a role here because it does create, hopefully, some institutional framework which can be helpful to you as you emerge. One of the things that happened today, I think that we should be very cognizant of, was we all were very pleased with what we saw from Montefiore. Montefiore, I said, it's been doing this for 10 years. Judy corrected me. Maimonides. I'm sorry, Maimonides, and they've been. I work with both of them, and Maimonides, but they've been doing it for a lot more than 10 years. So they have an enormous long history. You are trying to skip that gap, and you're trying to close that gap in a much shorter period of time. And so having support from existing institutional players is very important in helping you, overcome the I mean, this is an incredible set of difficulties that they're facing in what is maybe the last network of almost mom and pop offices anywhere. And so whatever help they can get, Judy, I think they really need it, and I think they have made a great deal of progress, and I'm cheering for you guys. And I think your recommendations actually make a great deal of sense in your case.
Thank you. I would just like to add one comment. We thought since day one that could have been one of the things, but we have had a lot of difficulties working under the hospital and moving forward with many things, especially things like IT that we could have contract much faster, and we have to then go at their pace instead of ours. So there's many things that we could discuss offline, but that has been a challenge for us to move forward, and we have raised that issue to Jason.
Sherry?
I agree with Stephen, but I want to make 2 points. The fact that you are all so diverse, and it makes us all so happy. I don't think the fact that you are all so diverse makes it a reason for you also not to engage CBOs, because it's obvious that you need some help, and not just perhaps big institutional help. I also wonder if the community health worker model might provide some assistance for you, because we're 2.5 years down the road, and even this last piece, you're contracting now. There's a whole lot of things that it sounds like you're getting ready to do, and I think you need to be open to get some help and to use some models that others, either institution and or the community health workers, have provided. I really do, and I'm pulling for you too. But you still got to do the work.
That's an excellent observation. I just want to respond to that with one thing. We have hired 50 community health workers, and we have deployed them in the most innovative ways with our CBOs. And to give you 2 examples of how I believe we're charting the new course for health, we collaborated with one of our health plans, Affinity. I said, give me the list of every ACP patient who has not had a visit in the last 12 months. The community health workers were deployed in all the communities, making phone calls, knocking on doors, taking people by hand, coordinating appointments in the PCP office. In 3.5 months, they scheduled 700 appointments. 700 appointments that were not previously able to be done by the health plan doing calls and outreach. We're onto something. When they were making those calls with the doctor, one doctor called them aside and said, and you saw it in the video, I have 9 mothers that I prescribed asthma medicine for their children, and they didn't fill the script. Can you help? The community health workers went to the house, met the mother, learned all kinds of things.
I'm sorry, but we really need to ask you.
I'm sorry.
Our time is up, but we appreciate the intent, and I think you addressed her call. Judy, one more quick comment, and then we'll vote.
I do need to respond to Steve because there have been instances where I've gotten calls where Northwell, which is not culturally competent per se, and not much of a safety net provider, although they have loads of hospitals that are, interferes with decision making, like something about Zika, which they didn't think the money should be spent on, whereas these are the practices where absolutely that kind of information should come out. So that's why I raised that concern.
Thank you. We need to take a vote.
Thank you.
We need a motion. Thank you very much. All right, do we have a motion on the floor? Again, it's one of 3. Bill Ebenstein.
I move that we accept...
Can you speak into the mic, Bill?
Sorry. I'm losing here. Basically, I just want to... I move that we accept the recommendations of the independent assessor, and approve it pending the white paper.
Okay. There's a motion to go ahead with the modifications of the white paper.
I second. Oh, go ahead.
Bill seconds. Any quick discussion on this? Share with the mic.
turned on. I was amazed at the zero in the substance abuse, and I'm also referring to. I think that just like it mentions the emergency rooms, that the substance abuse should also be added into corrective or an additional.
It's already in
Can we do it?
it already is in the standard language that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Then.
Okay, any others? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Any abstain?
I'm not sure what I'm doing on this one, sorry.
Well, then we're going to show you as abstained since we have to account for everyone. Okay, thank you. The motion carries.